Hi, how's everything going up there in Alaska, Peter? So, anyways, glad that you are able to watch this video. This is the first in what I'm going to make to be a series of videos. And the purpose is to cover the central teachings of our Christian faith, as taught in the Bible, and to do that in a very thorough way. And the other thing about these lessons that I'm going to do in this lesson in the future is aim it at you as a church leader. So throughout our lessons, there's times I'm going to say, now here's something to pass on to the people of your congregation. So I would suggest, if possible, that you have a Bible in front of you, maybe a notebook, something to write with. Um, because this is a video, you have the advantage of being able to pause it at any time and look up some passages with me, or just watch it, again. And I encourage you to do that. So I'll do my best to teach in a clear way our lesson. So here's lesson one. We're going to entitle this lesson, God Made All Things. So that's our lesson. We're going to start at the very beginning of the Bible. God made all things. And the central chapter our lesson focuses on is Genesis chapter 1. And I'm going to turn to that, Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. Now I'm going to read the whole chapter. I'm going to read kind of quickly because it's a longer chapter, and I don't want to get bogged too much in some of the details, but I'm going to read the chapter and then do a lot of explaining. So here it goes. Here's my reading. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. And God said, "Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse sky. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the fourth day. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living and moving thing with which the water teems according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creatures that move along the ground, and wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds of the air, and all the creatures that move on the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. And God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. Now I continue in the first few verses of chapter 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed, and all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. So there's our chapter, our scriptures. And I'm now going to just draw out of this chapter a number of key thoughts. First of all, just to review, it started out with nothing. Then there was day one in light. Then day two in the sky. Then day three in the land with grass and plants and trees. And day four, sun and moon, stars, planets. Day five, there was the fish and the birds. And on day six, God made the animals and people, human beings. Everything he made was good. He didn't have to redo anything. It tells us something about our God. Now, he rested on day 7. He didn't do any work, any creating work that day. Creates a 7-day week. And we can see that God already is thinking of people. He has a special love for people because he's going to create a week so that life for you and me isn't just all work. We're also going to have time for rest. Now let's talk about these days, because sometimes people will try to make the argument, well, these days were actually not like days today, 24 hours long. They were maybe each a billion years. That's just nonsense. Morning and evening, doesn't that sound like a typical day? A 7-day week, huh? Isn't that like what we have? So the fact is that these were 24-hour days, just like we have today. God could have made the world in 7 seconds if he wanted. He chose 6 days and then rested. Now, not every creature is mentioned, and there are angels that God made in this first week, and we have no clue which of the 6 days he made them, but they're among his creatures. Interesting that God made creatures to reproduce after their own kind. So robins will give birth to baby robins, rabbits to baby rabbits. We can see God is creating the ability for creatures to continue, not die off, by being able to reproduce in their own kind. One of the most powerful things we learn from this chapter is how God made everything. He made it by his word. He simply spoke, and things came into being. There's a Bible verse, Psalm 33, verse 6, that says, "By the word of the Lord were the heavens made." And God will often, even to this day, create new life. And now I'm thinking of life of faith in our hearts. How's he do it? He speaks the word. God is wise. God is powerful. These are some of the traits of God that we see here. We see that God is a great God. Just think of how many different things God created, all coexisting beautifully at the very beginning. Can you name anything in the world today that functions as well as the entire universe that God created? Why, a family with a cat and a dog have trouble getting along well. God created all this variety: birds, fish, people, animals, clouds, ground, all of this. And it all functions beautifully to this day. And so the creation is a tremendously important act that the Bible records of God. So we come to see God as great, right? Now, he made people the last of his creatures and the best of his creatures. He made the man and the woman in his image. Now, God is a spirit, so he didn't make them to physically look like God, but rather in character to be like God. God is holy. He does not sin. That's how God made them, holy and without sin. So God shows his special love to the man and woman when he blesses them, the ability to reproduce, to have babies. He blessed them. But he also put them on the top of the pyramid, you might say. So God said, rule the world. It's yours. The animals don't put you in the zoo cages. You put them in fences and ranches and corrals, because you as people are number one. The world ultimately is to serve you. You can eat of the trees and the fruits and the plants and so forth. It's for your enjoyment. And so, again, this is a very important truth. In creation, God is showing the special place in his heart that he has for us human beings. Now, the Bible's account of how the world got here is laid out in Genesis 1, and that God created the world in 6 natural days. This is totally contradicted by a theory called evolution, which is taught in our American public schools, not in our Christian schools, but in the public schools they teach evolution. It is a theory. Scientists do a lot of great things. They make a lot of great discoveries. It's not a knock against scientists. But when people come up with the idea of how the world first got here, they weren't around. The fact is that God must tell us. And how God tells us the origins of the world are different than evolution, which is this theory that over billions and billions of years, the world evolved from the tiniest little substance, a little bit of saliva, which evolved into higher and higher life forms, and then eventually to apes, and then the human beings evolved from apes. This is just nonsense. And it's so sad that this is taught to children in public schools. And that's why in our churches, leaders need to get the truth out. And we simply need to teach the truth that God made this world, and he made us, and he made us not to be another animal, but he made us to be very special to him. And this is an important teaching, because a lot of human beings think that they can live like animals. We need to be told we have a great God who designed and made us, and let's live up to that God and his plans for us. Now, God didn't just make the world and retire. He continues to run the world. It's still his baby, and he continues to give this world all it needs to keep operating. So we say that God is preserving his world. When he told the sun to shine in day 4, he's never withdrawn those words. He's never said, don't shine. And so it's the word of God that continues to preserve the world to this day. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3 says that God upholds all things by his almighty word. If God were to withdraw his word so that no longer would plants reproduce or animals, No longer would the sun shine. Well, you can guess what would happen to this world. We'd be done in a heartbeat. We are completely at the mercy of God for life, for a future. God, this is God's world that we live in. The good news is that he has promised to preserve his world intact until a final day when, yes, we all are left, are taken from this world to the new heaven and earth. But until then, God promises that he will continue to preserve his world and the normal operations of the world. I'm going to read to you Genesis 8, verse 22. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. That's a tremendous promise of God, that we can count on him to continue to give us morning and evening, the 4 seasons, seed time, and then rainfall, sunshine, and harvest time. This is, again, an important truth to pass on to our churches. Today, people are being fed scare tactics, that the world is in danger of dying off by some catastrophe. Or maybe the North Pole will melt and we'll all be flooded out and drown. Maybe a meteor will strike the earth and we all just die. Maybe we can't sustain ourselves. Maybe we'll run out of food. This is just fear. Where there is faith in the Word of God, we know this is God's world. He's going to keep it strong and habitable for us human beings until the very end. Knowing that we're living in God's world affects us. How are we going to take care of God's world, the soil, the trees, the plants, the birds? We're certainly not going to recklessly kill off anything that God has made. We're going to treat with respect the earth that God has made and given to us. As God preserves the world, he continues to do that for a purpose. Remember that he wants to feed all of his creatures, help them stay alive or reproduce. Same for the human family, especially for the human family. And what that means is that God is preserving the world so that there will continue to be food and shelter for us human beings. God gives us food every day. The ground produces. And then from animal, we can get meat or milk and so forth. God continues to give sunshine and rainfall to this world. He continues to allow us to have clothing made from fabric or perhaps the hide of certain animals. God continues to give us resources for heat, whether that is coal or solar energy. God continues to give to human beings. We are all extended from Adam and Eve, but he continues to give us abilities to function in his world, to farm, to harvest, to reproduce and have families. All of this is from God, and it's something we want to acknowledge, and it's something that we want to thank him for. So, for example, every day, whether it's at eating a meal or at the end of the day, to say, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good and his love endures forever. Every day, if we step back and think of God taking care of us, running this world, oh, we have so much reason to praise and thank him. One of the final thoughts on this lesson, that God made all things, is again to recognize how great our God is. The world that God made is a masterpiece. You could take just one nation, just one area of the world, and spend almost your entire life marveling at what God has made there, in that river, in that mountain, in that prairie. The world is a masterpiece. Think of the forests, the oceans, the stars. Think of the intricacies of a baby. of a deer, of a lion. It's a masterpiece. And we need to acknowledge this and praise God for it. And there's a psalm, I'm going to read its verses. Psalm 95, verses 1 to 5, that capture this spirit of worship to our Creator God. Come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and song. For the Lord is the great God, the great King above all gods. In his hand are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to him. The sea is his, for he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. God bless you as you continue to digest the lessons of this episode. God made all things. Bye-bye.